Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. We're talking Chiefs, Royals, maybe a little college basketball today with star columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian and beat writer Jesse Newell. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Opening day for the Royals is Thursday against the Cleveland Guardians. Cole Reagans against Tanner Bybee. Should be a great one. Probably as anticipated an opening day for the Royals as we've had in a few years. Vahe, you've been to a lot of these opening days. Any good opening day memories for you? You weren't around when Luke Hochaver was lit up. And
somehow between time spent here over the years and being around people who were there, I have great memories of the Luke Hochaver opener that I didn't attend because I think it was something like 11 pitches into the game, he was being booed off the field. And that seemed to speak to a generation of Royals fans. And now we're at least back to thinking, hope springs eternal and that good things will happen. And, of course, after last season, I think there's ample reason to believe that. But I do love opening days in general. I went to a lot of them in St. Louis, too. And it is such a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, right? You just feel like you're on top of the world and you haven't lost anything yet. I've never looked this up. I have no idea how you do on how what you do on opening day correlates with the way the rest of the season goes. I imagine.
No.
What's that? Enough?
Incredibly little. None.
No, but I mean, not even causally, just even by coincidence. Like if you win on opening day, how often do you go to the playoffs?
I would say there's zero correlation.
I know. I'm not saying correlation. I'm saying coincidental.
You're saying
doesn't matter
direct
in any way.
Relationship is what you're saying. That's what I'm hearing here.
It's like I passed the ball into the corner to myself, and I got two guys on me.
Explain it one more time.
Just if by coincidence it says anything at all if you win on opening day.
If it's coincidence, it doesn't say anything at all by definition.
We'll move on.
I hate opening day all of a sudden. I loved it for so long.
You know who else hates opening day? Ned Yost used to hate opening days. He just didn't, all the pomp and circumstance, he just wanted it to be done with. And I bring it up because Ned's back with the team. Right?
Yeah.
You guys got to talk to him out at spring training.
We had some good time with Ned. Just watching on the backfields, watching 8 guys pitch at once, and hearing Ned talk about all the data points being gathered while he was trying to capture it all with his naked eye was kind of interesting.
Well, it did show to me the difference in the old regime and the new regime because Ned Yost said it's night and day. That was the phrase he used when we talked to him. Night and day difference between how his teams operated and how the organization operates now. That tells me the organization wasn't using a whole lot of this analytical data when Ned Yost was here, which, look, we already knew, but him saying that to me was confirmation. He said he has so much to learn. And I said, so much? And he goes, oh, yeah, night and day difference, like between... And pitching was the main thing. I mean, he comes from the class where it was just, he said he caught every single one of, Glavine, Smoltz, Maddox's bullpens, whereas it was just low and outside fastball. Well, now you try to get rise on your fastball and try to actually throw it up in the zone. And that's all based on data and tunneling your pitches and stuff that, as we're watching these bullpens, they have these TrackMan devices, these iPads that are right behind the pitchers, right behind the catchers. I mean, it does speak to me one of the reasons that the organization is a lot more successful now is because they have adopted this stuff in a new way since Matt Quatraro was here.
But until they win a World Series or even reach a World Series, Ned Yost...
Don't you think there's a part of Ned inside that's like, let's see them win a World Series with all this mumbo-jumbo?
Tapping his ring on the desk.
Listen, I'm here to help. It was great to talk to him, though, but it was a sharp contrast, and Ned was happy to talk about it that way. Like, he kind of made the point that, he didn't need no stinking data because he had Hochaver and Holland and Madsen and Wade Davis to strike and Herrera to strike out everybody. But it's kind of fascinating. I hope I can figure out a way to wrestle a story on it to the ground because it was interesting to talk to, as ever.
We got a few moves that the Royals have made here in the last day or so as they put together their opening day roster. They have assigned Nelson Velasquez and Nick Prado to AAA Omaha. They acquired Mark Kana.
Can I get a witness?
That's right. From we were having a little pronunciation research here. We will leave that to Ryan Lefevre and to Rex Hudson.
Kana, we got it. No big deal. Kana.
Still, I would choose to follow the lead of the Royals television network on this and the radio broadcast. Denny will set us straight on the correct pronunciation. But interesting acquisition. Vahe, you and I and Jalen Thompson, the Royals beat writer, were here talking about opening day roster last week, and we didn't see a trade coming. We were working from the roster that the Royals had at the time, and he was thinking Biggio maybe for the 26th spot, and I think it's going to be this newest acquisition will be the 26th, the utility guy off the bench. Seems can play multiple positions, and in another maybe bit of a contrast from old regime to new regime, maybe the most attractive thing about his line is his on-base percentage. He gets on at about 346 last year, and which if it's around there, that would rank pretty high among Royals regulars. I don't know, the on-base percentage is just still continues to be a work in progress for the Royals. Anybody?
I thought that number sounded familiar to me. I thought that might have been maybe it was career, but that might be high for career. Sorry, Sam. I stepped on Sam. Literally and figuratively. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
I think he was at 344 last year, 349 for his career, but I agree with you, Blair. I mean, they're looking for, that late inning matchup, just give us a tough plate appearance. I think even though those of us who saw a lot of Garrett Hampson, that type of player last year, Adam Frazier did not really think his numbers.
Nick Lofton.
Their numbers jumped off the page but I know J.J. Piccolo, the Royals general manager, thought those guys gave, the cliche of the professional at bat. I think when you look at those types of numbers, particularly on base that you mentioned, I think that's probably what jumps out to the Royals is somebody that can give you a late inning, just grind it out, tough at bat.
Unqualified players, at least. 338 was second on the team last year, and that was Yuli Gurriel, who we know his slugging percentage was like in the negatives.
Right. And how many at bats did he have with the Royals?
Yeah, not many, 65 plate appearances. So, to put that number into perspective, I mean, it's been going down every year for Kana. He had much better numbers earlier on, but if he gives you just roughly what he gave last year, as Sam said, he's a bench bat. He can come off. Sometimes you need a walk to start things off, and he potentially can give the Royals that. And they've sold out a little bit more of getting on base. We know by trading Brady Singer to get Jonathan India, and India is going to love batting in front of Bobby Witt Jr. because he's going to have a chance to score a lot of runs.
What was that? One of my favorite stats from last year is that Bobby Witt came to the plate with nobody on base more than anybody in Major League history, or something like that. It was
the most I could track back was 20 years on Fangraphs, but it was for a non-leadoff hitter.
Yeah, for a non-leadoff hitter, right?
Yeah, it was like 10 more that I could find. Fangraphs had dated back to like 2004 or something like that, and I couldn't find evidence of anybody that came to the plate with the bases empty more than Bobby Witt Jr. did as a non-leadoff hitter. And he doesn't want it. Something I chatted with him about in spring training, they wanted him to hit leadoff last year at some point when they couldn't get a leadoff guy who could get on base consistently. He prefers not to hit leadoff, and that was the end of the conversation. It wasn't that they pressed him on it, but he wants to stand in the on-deck circle and watch the opening at bat because he feels like he can gather some intel from that. And, of course, what's interesting about that is, like, India doesn't just walk. He takes, deep plate appearances as well. So even in the instances where he's not getting on base, Maikel Garcia swung at the first pitch a lot as the leadoff hitter. And so I think Bobby Witt Jr. at least feels like there'll be some benefit to his own plate appearance, even if that guy doesn't get on base. And, there's teams, I think, that maybe are going to be more prone to pitch around Bobby Witt Jr. this year. Well, it's not just about protecting him behind him. It's really hard to pitch around guys when you've got guys on base in front of them as well.
Right. And another roster move, Carlos Hernandez no longer with the Royals. The Carlos Hernandez era has come to an end 5 years with the Royals. Came up in the COVID season of 2020, 150 appearances for him. 7-19, 4.95 ERA, was released, claimed on waivers by the Philadelphia Phillies. So, there was some moments with him that you thought he had it. He was going to be 98, 99.
I mean, they as much progress as the organization has made over the last couple of years, there's still a couple of really big whiffs. Obviously, Brent Rooker that signed a big deal with the A's that they just let go.
He'll be the toast of Sacramento this year. But
then Carlos Hernandez had a lot of trade interest at the trade deadline in 23, and they decided he was their closer of the future. And I think even went into that next spring training last year thinking he could be their closer. And a lot of their bullpen moves that they had anticipated last year didn't work out with Will Smith, Stratton, and Carlos Hernandez. But there was a chance that he, even if indirectly, could have helped their roster last year if they had made a move. And that was just obviously an oversight of what they deemed as talents. But you can see why a team like the Phillies thinks like they could make something out of him. And I wouldn't be surprised if another team could make something out of him.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll look at it all differently if somebody makes something out of him, right? I mean, but maybe that's unfair because sometimes maybe an organization just can't speak the language that gets somebody to where they need him to get right there. Just need the change.
Can't be afraid to make a mistake either. And
the
Royals, for a long time, you're talking about different regimes. For a long time, they were afraid to make a mistake on a guy like that and wouldn't move on from him. So, you could find. I mean, you have that sort of life on your fastball. You've got a chance to be something somewhere. But I think it also speaks to the Royals and how they revamped their bullpen this offseason. The fact that you're looking at their bullpen and you're saying, we can't squeeze this guy on a spot and he's out of options and you got to move on from him. Maybe you could squint and say, hey, Chris Stratton, did he deserve it, that sort of thing. But outside of that, they've made some improvements there. And this bullpen has the potential to be one of the best assets of the entire roster. And the credit to that is kind of the negative here, which is potentially have to move on from a guy that still has some potential.
They seem to have every situation covered with their bullpen. Long guy, 6th inning guy, 7th inning guy, 8th inning, closer. There doesn't seem to be question marks for situational pitching for the Royals, which in the bullpen, which is different than it's been in the last few years.
Amped up some velocity too, which we know last year they didn't have much of that in the pen, but they'll have some fire coming out there now with some of the additions they made, some of the guys coming back from injury like Hunter Harvey last year.
Take a swing at picking sports this baseball season with Underdog. Playing on their app is as easy as choosing higher or lower on players' stats. Get them right, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Sign up today using promo code KCSTAR to get a gimme pick as a part of your first cash entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you deposit. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Okay, we need to talk about some new Chiefs as well, and some old Chiefs, and some re-signed Chiefs. While we're at it, the Chiefs went into the free agency period with a lot of players whose contracts had expired or were about to expire. I think the number was 28, something like that. It was way on up there, and of course that made him an active player in free agency. Jesse, you edited the free agency tracker for the Royals. Everybody's got a tracker these days, and Jesse did ours. Busy times that continues even through today with this re-signing of Mike Pennell, defensive tackle. Do you think the Chiefs accomplished what they set out to accomplish in free agency? I don't know. I can't define what they set out to do. And they ended up losing some guys who I thought they would try to re-sign, but just didn't work out. What do you think? Just overall free agency thoughts?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear the columnist's take on this as well. But if you'd have told me at the combine that they'd re-sign or that they would have under contract at least Trey Smith and Nick Bolton both this season, I would have been very surprised. I remember Brett Veach said that at the combine to one of the people he was talking to in the interview, and I go, I don't really see how that's possible. How could you do that? How could you lock both of those guys up? And, you sit here, even at the end of free agency with whatever else they did, and to have those two guys coming back, I think Probably wouldn't have been in the cards a couple weeks ago, but it is something they were managed to get done. However, Trey Smith's still on the franchise tag for a 1-year deal. It sounds like they still hope to lock him up long term, but haven't done it yet. And part of the downside of locking him into that franchise tag is it eats up a lot of your money and keeps it kind of hostage until you can do something with it. And it ends up that, Trey Smith had some leverage and they didn't work out a long-term deal, so they had, some challenges to get through this year. But a little surprised on Bolton that they came back with him. Obviously, they love the guy, but, I know Sam can speak to this. A couple years ago when they had him out, they moved Drew Tranquil over to middle linebacker and didn't seem to skip a beat. They still have Drew Tranquil, and he's under contract as well. So off-ball linebacker is usually one of those that you don't spend a lot of resources on, and the Chiefs did spend. And I think it's probably something Sam will point out as well, is that they spent a lot on non-premium positions. They paid up on their guard, they paid up on their linebacker. They've got some positions there that they're spending a lot of money on that maybe other teams haven't. But I think the thing I would want to crystallize most is when Sam and I talked to Brett Veach, the GM for the Chiefs, at the Combine. He said his biggest fear was going to the draft and being forced to take a certain position. I think they've done a really good job here. They're not forced to take any position. Like, would you like some depth on the O-line at tackle? Yes. Would you like more depth on the defensive line? Of course. But they don't have to go in the first-round pick and say, well, this third-round offensive tackle is the only guy available, and we have to take him because we have to fill in left tackle. I think they've done a really good job of that, where they go into this draft freed up of their minds, and they can go out and take the best player. And they've drafted really well, and they've had that potential available to them.
So your first mock draft, which will be out a week from today, which we're recording on a Monday, could have a tight end in the first round.
Wrong. Yes. No, I still think
Running back.
Wrong. I saw the DraftKings odds on running back, and I was like, boy, they don't know this team very well. That's even on the board. I mean, it's just barely above long snapper, but still. I still think defensive tackle, guys, they need to get younger there. I mean, I know the re-signing of the Mike Pinnells of the world. They've done that the last few years, tried to cobble things together, but it sure would be good to get somebody young. And not to mention, Chris Jones is getting older too. So to have an heir apparent there and to have somebody next to him that can play, I still think that's a main need. And this is a really, really deep draft at defensive tackle. I could definitely see the Chiefs taking one of those guys.
Well, I think that we always grade drafts, right? As soon as the draft is over, we grade players that have never spent a second in team's uniform. I think it's probably easier to grade free agency. I think they did okay. What do you think? Yeah. You okay with how they handle free agency?
I guess I would emphasize just that word, okay. I think they set out to accomplish two things. One, which Jesse touched on, I think they want to be in a position where they really can draft best player available. And I think our second takeaway from this should be that they really do not like this free agent market. And it is a weak free agent class this year. So they said, we've got money to spend. We don't like what's available to spend out there. So you might as well keep what is the known commodity, that you know what you're going to get out of Nick Bolton and Trey Smith and
Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster,
and Kareem Hunt. Yep. And I am surprised at the level to which they're running this group back. I know they went 15-1, but all year long we talked about how fortunate they were to be 15-1 for 6 different reasons at the end of games this year. It didn't really feel like the power of a real 15-1 team. I guess the contract I'm really questioning is the Nick Bolton contract. And Jesse mentioned it, but they were the same team with Drew Tranquil and Nick Bolton out. They each played 8 games in the middle in 2023, and they both in both instances. So 8 games with Nick Bolton, they were 4th against the pass and 26th against the run. Without him, they were 4th against the pass and 22nd against the run. That's on a per play basis, not total yardage, but still That's the reason we call that position a non-premium position, is you can work without having that position be your best player on the field at the time. And I think Nick Bolton is great at his position. It's just not a position that I would invest those kind of resources in. And look, there was a tackle available in this class. It just wasn't a free agent. It was Laramie Tunsil. You had to pay him. You had to have draft picks for him. But these are the kinds of contracts, if that situation pops up next year, your hands are going to be tied because you've invested in Nick Bolton. You've invested $20-some million annually in Trey Smith, and I don't think they're in great position to address their real needs, whether that's this year or whether that's next year when you spend this kind of money on these positions.
Almost impossible to add to anything you guys said. I think my thought was just that it was nothing glamorous, kind of fundamentally sound. The implications for the future are a little concerning that way. I did not see the Joe Tooney move coming, which enabled some of this, but maybe you guys had a little inkling of that. But that was pretty consistent with their constant churn to get younger and not spend money on guys they don't have to. And so there's more work to be done, but I like your points that it sort of frees them up in the draft to do what they gravitate to as best for what they need then, as opposed to having to force feed a position.
And obviously this is a talk about Nick Bolton and the contract. I mean, we all really enjoy talking to Nick Bolton, and we know he's a team leader from being there with him, and he's still young. He fits their profile. So all those things check off. It's just, I mean, he's on a premium contract for a linebacker, and not every team does that, especially a team like the Chiefs, which have some other cap guys out there that are going to cost some money. As far as Tooney goes, I think this just speaks to their confidence in Kingsley Suamataia being able to be a left guard. They've talked about that at the end of the year, and now, I mean, they still invested a second-round draft pick in him and traded up for him, and so he needs to work out. And they have Mike Caliendo, obviously, as a backup plan. They could draft another guard, but that's the sort of thing that needs to work out. And Sam, maybe you can speak to this too. They did use up, to restructure Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes. They freed up a lot of money there, and in past years they've been a little bit more frugal with that to say, let's not kick this thing down the road a little bit. Some of the aggression in free agency was opened up because they kind of went through a path that they haven't really gone to in years past, as much at least. So we'll see how all those things work out. But they were probably more aggressive than I thought they'd be, because I thought they would take the more conservative approach like they have in past years. But this year, they kind of kicked some of that down the road to be able to go and make some signings like Christian Fulton and Nick Bolton and do some of the things they did this year.
What confidence level should we have in Kingsley?
Well, I mean, they had too much confidence in him last year. And look, I think that's the lesson that they learned from last year is you can't go into the draft needing a starter. They went into the draft not having a left tackle. I mean, we were talking about, is Wanya Morris really going to open a season as a starting left tackle? And their answer was no, we can't do this with Wanya Morris opening the season. So you've got to draft somebody. That's what they're trying to avoid. And the most glaring need they have now is defensive line. Well, what's different with this year and last year is you can get a quality defensive lineman at 31. I've talked to some people who think this is among the deepest defensive line drafts that they've seen. Deepest. I don't mean strongest at the top. I mean that. And the first and late first and early second round, you will be able to get starting defensive linemen out of it, which is the other thing that these moves are telling us, that they also believe that this is a deep defensive line class because, it's a position that they needed to address and they haven't, other than just bringing back. They brought back Mike Pennell as we record this today. I mean, they did let Derek Nottie walk, which is probably a couple years overdue, but that's what that's telling us, and it's why, I think some people are probably confused why you signed Jalen Moore at offensive tackle. They don't anticipate you're going to get an offensive tackle. That's part of the I think that's where they deserve some credit. Is it's a lesson learned from the Kingsley Suamataia situation. So to answer your question, I mean, you've got a protection for that because you made that mistake a year ago by just assuming he was going to be your left tackle. I think he's got to have competition, which Hunter Norzad played pretty well in his one start in Denver. He will have competition, but you can't go in with saying, we want this guy to win the job, so he's going to win the job. He's got to actually win the job if he's going to play left guard next year for him.
Jalen Moore is a really fascinating case study too, guys, because ESPN numbers hate him. PFF numbers love him, and the Chiefs have always been on the forefront of the scouting part. When they scout a guy and like him, they've usually been right. I mean, if they're right on him and he's a serviceable left tackle, they've got a steal. If he falls apart, then it's one of the worst free agent signings of the offseason when, they potentially could have gotten – I mean, I know it's a weak class, but, you could have gotten somebody else to secure that spot. So
maybe. I think what's interesting about that is, so the Titans gave Dan Moore $82 million.
4 for 82.
Over 4 years. Dan Moore allowed the most sacks in the NFL last year.
Including a lot to the Chiefs, by the way.
And he's getting $82 million over 4 years. That's where the left tackle market is. You can't find these guys. So they're in a corner on left tackle. And I don't blame them for being that corner because they draft late. That's how you get a left tackle. Brett Veach made the joke to Jesse at the Combine. He said, I told Andy how we'd get a left tackle. We sucked for a year, and then we go get a left tackle. Like, that's the way you get left tackles. That's the way you solve it. But I do blame them for not having somebody competent. And that's all. You don't need Jalen Moore to be an all-pro. You need him to be competent. They did not have competency at left tackle last year.
You hate to, I mean, you can bring this old thing up, but it makes you wonder if they don't wish they could go back in time with Orlando Brown. I mean, the guy had his faults, but, like, looking at some of the things that they've faced the last couple of years, Orlando Brown was serviceable, and serviceable would have served them well here, especially in the Super Bowl this past one. Who knows how everything else would have gone, but serviceable is the bar here. And if Jalen Moore can pass the serviceable bar, that'll be a great signing for the Chiefs.
They thought they had reached that bar with DJ Humphries. When some of the things I'm hearing now were the same ideas that we had about 5 months ago, right? 4 months ago when they signed Humphries, and probably not ready to play as he was injured returning from an injury, injured in his first game, and then sat out another however many weeks, played again, but then was persona non grata for the playoffs. And so is he not part of the equation anymore?
I still think they could end up bringing him back.
He's unsigned. He's one of the free agents who's unsigned.
Yeah. He seemed very happy in Kansas City last year. I mean, if you talked to him at the Super Bowl or whatever, like, he was grateful to be there, still had a good attitude about it. So, I mean, I don't want to speak for Sam, but I could see him coming back just on a vet min deal. And like, speaking to the competition you talked about, Sam, like, we constantly hear Brett Veach talk about throwing bodies at it. I think he's a body you can throw at it. I mean, if you have Jalen Moore and you have whatever tackle you draft in the first 4 rounds and you have DJ Humphries, then you have a competition and you have some backup and security net, safety net, so you don't have what happened last year. And that's probably how the Chiefs embrace this problem. But they need a cheap solution, and DJ potentially could fall on that as well.
Is he, something possibly a diamond in the rough yet, or do you think he's just past it? I mean, I think the snapshot we got was based on maybe coming back too soon.
Well, we've seen. I mean, look, he's had a long career. I don't think his career I'd call a diamond. I mean, he's a serviceable Donovan Smith type player, especially. I mean, he's going to be 30 this year, right?
One Pro Bowl in 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, diamond's too strong, obviously, but I mean, is he more than we think he is? Then
how much do you think he is?
Well, are we basing this all on a guy who came back too soon from injury?
I wouldn't evaluate DJ Humphries just based on what he did last year, to your point.
Yeah.
No.
So I think the question is, are the Chiefs going to sign him?
Yeah.
I still think he's very much could be part of the plans, but let's see what they do in the draft at left tackle to see if they have another option there as well.
Well, and I mean, to Sam's point, Donovan Smith, they signed him crazy late that offseason, right. I remember. Yeah. So I think the ball is probably in the Chiefs' court, as you guys are kind of discussing here, that, like, they can see how the draft goes, they can see what happens with it, they can see who they draft or who's available, and then DJ's probably waiting by his phone, waiting for the Chiefs. And so probably a possibility, but probably not something the Chiefs have to rush at this point.
All right, let's wrap it up on this thought. Last Thursday, the first day of the NCAA basketball tournament, I found myself rationalizing the seasons of Kansas and Missouri the same way I did the Chiefs. You've got their butts kicked in the Super Bowl, and I'm telling myself, but they had a great season. It was a really good regular season, 15-1, and with the starters, and got to the Super Bowl again. But then the Super Bowl performance was so bad. That's all anybody will remember. Look, Kansas was obviously a disappointing regular season, preseason number 1, and loses in the first round of the tournament. But they got to the tournament for the 35th straight year. Missouri, after going 0-18 in the SEC a year ago and then losing its first tournament game, becomes the number 6 seed in the NCAA tournament and, of course, loses to Drake in the first round. So you guys went and saw Missouri lose its opener. It was tough to watch because it looked like Ben McCollum just had a great coaching game against Dennis Gates and Mizzou. But is there, I guess if the Royals, I don't know if they're in a position to disappoint, because that means they'll have a great regular season, then lose in the first playoff game or something. But should Missouri and Kansas fans how should they feel about their season? Should they be disappointed? Should they, is this one of those things, time will heal all wounds? Where should they go with this?
The one thing you just made me think of was, Kansas fans had to go from preseason number 1 to what became, right? But you guys tell me, I don't remember ever going through a Missouri season where, all of a sudden, by mid-February or so, they've beaten 3 top 5 teams. And I remember hearing fans sort of almost talking out loud about, this is a year for that first Final Four. They got that in them. So when you put it in that frame, it's like, boy, what a dud that game was. And it was pretty uninspiring to see just how precise and purposeful Drake's play was offensively, particularly, and how Missouri just, as Norm Stewart used to complain when they lose a game, just standing. They were that's what it felt like. They were just standing. Like I couldn't figure out what they were doing offensively, and and Drake was the better team. So I don't know. I mean, I found myself trying to think big picture and thinking about, like, when you go from 0-18 the SEC to getting back to the tournament, that's still pretty darn good, right? But what now kind of has to happen for that to really mean anything is not to go back to 0-18. We're getting this pendulum swinging wildly in the Dennis Gates era, and I never did complete this research, but Missouri has been knocked out in the first round 16 times in its NCAA tournament history. I believe there are 4, 5, 6, 7 other programs that have been knocked out as many times. I don't know how many of them have never been to a Final Four. So at some point, you just feel like it's another first round loss for Missouri, which is really a bummer.
Business as usual.
But
they got there. Nobody could have envisioned it back in November.
I agree.
Right? I don't know. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I think there's reason to be disappointment for both teams. I mean, Kansas is obvious. It's the worst team they've had under Bill Self, worst performing team they've had under Bill Self. And I could understand the disconcerting part about, it's a new era and wondering, is the old era going to return in this new form of college basketball? But with Missouri, I mean, they were outcoached in that game. And as a Missouri fan, I could certainly understand the disappointment. There's no question who had more talent on the floor in that game, and it was the team that lost the game. I mean, Bennett Sturtz from Liberty is a really good player, but Drake didn't have a whole lot else to compete with Missouri's athletes in that game. And I think Ben McCollum coached a hell of a game. That game was played at Drake's pace, right, exactly the way Drake wanted it played. Anytime Missouri tried to get it out in transition, one of the most interesting things that Ben McCollum said, to where I could see other coaches using this as instructional points for their team. He said, when we give up steals and transitions, it's our goal to stop 2 of those maybe a game. Everyone else gives up on those. If we can stop 2, we're getting 2 extra possessions that nobody else in the country is getting on those spots. We're making them actually work for those buckets. That's how they played that game. And I don't know how Mark Mitchell's not a major factor in that game. He didn't even score until he got to the free throw line with a minute to go in the first half. Yeah. That's inexcusable from a coaching standpoint. They should have been feeding him the ball. Drake had nobody that was that kind of athlete with that kind of size, with that kind of skill level. And to allow the other team to take away your best player without getting something else out of it, because Missouri took away Bennett Sturtz too. He still scores 21 points and other guys get open shots. I could totally understand, if you're a Missouri fan, why you're disappointed. Even if you made this stride forward, that you'd still be saying, yeah, but we didn't have a great day. This wasn't the Chiefs in the Super Bowl where you didn't play well. You didn't have a great game plan either in this game.
Well, I was as we watched Drake's next game, which was against Texas Tech, I couldn't help but think of the game 2 days ago with Missouri, as Tech was setting up their big guy, J.T. Toppin, in the paint and feeding him, and he was scoring at will.
Great point, yeah.
Early on. So, a tough day for Missouri. Another one for Kansas that had a 3-point lead with 3 minutes to go. K.J. Adams looks like he tears his Achilles.
He did tear it. Gary Bedore confirmed it with Bill Self this week.
Okay, and that, how a 6'8", non-shooting forward can change the whole feel of a team with his absence, especially when it comes to ball handling, is a bit of a mystery, but it did. And, of course, that would spell doom for Kansas.
I think they win the game if that doesn't happen. Do you think they win the game?
Yes, I do think they win the game. I think they score on the possession.
Yeah.
They had a breakout to have a 5-point lead.
The lead. Yeah.
And I think it changes the dynamic of things.
Just real quick, it's just jarring from covering this team 3 years ago where they literally won a national championship on a set play. This is what Bill Self kicks everybody's butt in, is precision, knowing where to go, getting plays, getting guys open. And Sam, you saw it all season. I mean, you saw it in the Houston game. This team was so unclutch and so un-Bill Self-like in close games.
Yeah.
And then down the stretch, what kills their season is they're up 3 with 3 minutes left, and they run 3 set plays and turn it over all 3 times. I mean, it is crazy to watch this team and know that Bill Self is still coaching it, because it is so unlike any other team that he's coached. And so they obviously can use a dude, Darren Peterson, coming in. They could use a guy who can get to the basket and score. So much the NCAA tournament now is get off the dribble, get to the basket, and score. KU did not have that guy this year. They should have him next year. But to me, the jarring thing watching Kansas is just knowing and covering them for so long. They are so good in close games, and they are so good at executing set plays. But once again this year, that just killed them at the inopportune moment, and it's just jarring. It's jarring to watch a Bill Self team and have that happen, and it was unexpected down the stretch to me, but maybe not to those people who watch Kansas.
I'd say it's the single biggest difference between what they've been and who they were.
David McCormick's shot to win the national championship is a set play. I mean, and KU had 3 straight ones against Arkansas and turned it over all 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, so different this year that I thought with 3 minutes to go, KU's going to find a way to lose this game.
Yeah.
And it used to be if they were within, 6, you'd probably say they'll find a way to win this game. But to your point, I mean, and Vahe too, that to me defines this team more than anything else did this year. Is you just expected them to screw it up down the stretch in the biggest moments of the game.
And that might be part of this NIL thing we're not talking about, is that KU was really experienced. Like, look at Ken Palm, they had the most D1 experience.
Right.
Yeah.
But Bill Self is used to having player experience in his program where they've run this play a zillion times.
Yeah.
AJ Storr maybe it doesn't have the same level of execution. Maybe Hunter Dickinson doesn't, all those sorts of things. You would hope DeJuan Harris would. But maybe that is a little bit different. And that's sometimes, to me, why Bill Self does this as well. Sometimes it's players over plays. They need a Frank Mason. They need a Tyshawn Taylor. They need a dude who just can go get his. Maybe Darren Peterson will be that for them next year.
I didn't get to talk to Bill about this year, so I don't know the answer to this for sure. But last year, we got talking to him late in the season, and he said it was the first time he'd ever, in his entire coaching career, needed to have play cards with him on the bench that showed him which combinations could play together. Because through the data they assembled, now he usually remembers that or doesn't need to because each thing blends in its own way. And watching them, I have to think it was a little more of the same. I mean, there was just such a disconnect in the key moments.
A shame, too, because St. John's looked very, very beatable. They're at a 32. When we talk about memories and how teams are remembered, I think this Kansas team could have been remembered quite a bit differently if they made a run to the Sweet 16 that was unexpected, and that path was open for them this weekend.
I thought about Kansas going into the tournament as a team like North Carolina, the team they beat in the championship game, an 8 seed that had talent that finally figured it out at the end of the season. Kansas just never got it figured out. So, anyway. All right, guys. Opening day this week, NCAA Tournament still going on, free agency in football and the draft coming up. It's a great time of year, and we're lucky to be able to talk about it with Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Jesse Newell, and very lucky to have Monty Davis and Randy Mason on the production team. Thanks, guys, and we'll do it again soon.